A billionaire handed his credit card to a homeless woman and walked away. No PIN, no limit, no questions asked. Just pure, unrestricted access to millions of dollars. 53 minutes later, a notification lit up his phone. She'd made her first purchase. It wasn't a designer handbag. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't a luxury hotel room. It was something so unexpected, so heartbreaking, that it brought this powerful man to his knees. In that single moment, she made a choice that would shatter everything he believed about people, about poverty, and about the human heart. And what happened next? Nobody could have predicted it. This is a true story about trust, about second chances, and about discovering what wealth really means. Stay with me, because what this homeless mother did with unlimited money will change the way you see the world forever. Welcome to the City of Stories. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel Cross. He was 40 years old, and he owned half the technology companies in Seattle. His money? Let's just say he had more than he could ever spend in 10 lifetimes. His company built software that ran hospitals, schools, and banks all across America. People called him brilliant. They called him powerful. But nobody called him kind. Daniel lived alone in a glass tower that touched the clouds. From his apartment, he could see the entire city stretched out below him like a glowing carpet. He had everything money could buy. Expensive cars that he barely drove. Artwork that cost millions hanging on walls that nobody visited. A home theater where he watched movies by himself. Every morning, he woke up in a bed that cost more than most people's cars, and every morning, he felt empty. His father had raised him with one rule burned into his brain. Never trust anyone, especially poor people. His father would say, "Son, people will smile at you while they pick your pocket. Give them a chance, and they'll take everything. It's just human nature. The less they have, the more they want. Protect yourself first, always." Daniel had believed this his whole life. He built walls around his heart so high that nobody could climb them. He gave money to charity, yes, but only for tax breaks. Only when cameras were watching. He never looked a poor person in the eye. He never stopped to help. He walked past homeless people every single day like they were invisible. Not because he was evil, but because he was afraid. Afraid of being used. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of caring about someone who might disappoint him. But something was breaking inside him. He could feel it, like ice cracking in the spring. He had everything, but he felt like he had nothing. Success tasted like ashes in his mouth. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from people who wanted things from him, but nobody ever called just to see how he was doing. That's when everything changed. It was a rainy Thursday morning in March. Daniel was rushing through the downtown transit station, late for a meeting with investors from Japan. His assistant was running behind him, talking about stock prices and quarterly reports. Daniel wore a coat that cost $8,000. His leather bag held contracts worth $40 million. But his mind was somewhere else, somewhere dark and tired. Then he saw her. She was sitting against the cold concrete wall near the escalators. A woman, maybe 32, with tiredness written all over her face like a story nobody wanted to read. Next to her, curled up under a donated blanket, was a little girl. Maybe 7 years old. The child was sleeping, and the woman's arms were wrapped around her like a shield made of love and desperation. There was a sign next to them, written in marker on torn cardboard. Single mom. Lost everything. Anything helps. God bless. Daniel stopped walking. His expensive shoes squeaked on the wet floor. His assistant nearly crashed into him. "Mr. Cross, we're already 10 minutes late. The investors are waiting." But Daniel couldn't move. Something about this woman stopped him cold. When she looked up at him, there was no performance in her eyes. No rehearsed speech. Just exhaustion. The kind that settles into your bones after months of carrying weight you were never meant to carry alone. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. Her voice was rough from cold and not talking. "We're not bothering anyone. We can move if we need to." She was apologizing for existing. And that hit Daniel harder than any business loss ever had. "What's your name?" he asked, and he heard his own voice shake. The woman looked surprised. Like kindness, wearing an expensive suit was the strangest thing she'd ever seen. "Rachel," she said quietly. "Rachel Morgan. And this is my daughter, Lily." Daniel looked at the sleeping child. 7 years old, maybe younger, sleeping on a subway floor while thousands of people walked past every day. How long had they been here? How many nights had this little girl gone to sleep cold and scared? How long have you been out here? He asked. Shame crossed Rachel's face like a shadow. 6 months, she whispered. We stayed with my cousin until she lost her job. After that, we've been here or at the shelter when there's space. But the shelter is always full. 6 months. A child, sleeping on concrete for 6 months. Daniel's assistant cleared her throat. Mr. Cross, please. The investors. Daniel raised his hand to silence her. He didn't break eye contact with Rachel. In that moment, his father's voice echoed in his head, warning him. She'll drain you dry. She'll use you. Don't be a fool. But another voice, quieter and more honest, whispered something different. What if your father was wrong about everything? Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Rachel's eyes widened, probably expecting a few bills. Maybe $20 if she was lucky. Instead, Daniel pulled out a black credit card. The kind with no limit. The kind that could buy anything. He held it out to her. Take this, he said. Rachel stared at the card like it might explode. I don't understand. It's yours for 24 hours, Daniel said. His heart was pounding. Buy whatever you want. No limits. No rules. No questions asked. Rachel's hands started shaking. Sir, this has to be a trick. People don't just hand out credit cards to strangers. I want to test something, Daniel said, and for the first time in years, he spoke complete truth. I want to see what someone with nothing does when they're given everything. Prove my father right, or prove him wrong. Either way, I'll finally know. He pressed the card into her cold, rough hand. 24 hours. Spend whatever you want. I'll come back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. And then Daniel walked away, his heart racing, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the best decision he'd ever made. Daniel didn't go to the meeting with the investors. He went home instead. His assistant was furious. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. But he didn't care. He stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at Seattle's glowing skyline, wondering what Rachel was doing right now. Was she warm? Was Lily finally sleeping somewhere soft? He pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. The credit card was connected to his personal account. He could see every purchase in real time. Every dollar spent. Every location. Every choice Rachel made. For hours, nothing happened. Midnight came and went. 1 in the morning. 2. 3. Still nothing. Why wasn't she spending? Was she afraid it was a trap? Or was she planning something big, waiting for stores to open so she could drain the account all at once? Daniel couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment like a caged animal. His father's voice kept whispering in his ear. You're a fool. She's laughing at you right now, planning how to rob you blind. Then, at 6:30 in the morning, his phone buzzed. Transaction, $42.15. Location, 24-hour pharmacy, downtown Seattle. Daniel's heart jumped. He clicked for details, but the app only showed the amount, not what she bought. Just numbers. Cold, emotionless numbers. Then another notification. Transaction, $57.83. Location, Walmart, South Seattle. Then another. $3.49. McDonald's. Daniel stared at his phone. These weren't the purchases of someone drunk on sudden wealth. These were careful, modest, practical. Someone buying only what they desperately needed. By 8 in the morning, Daniel couldn't wait anymore. He got dressed and walked to the transit station. He needed to see with his own eyes what his money had bought. When he arrived, Rachel was exactly where he'd left her. But everything was different. Lily was awake now, wearing a brand new pink raincoat with a hood. Her hair had been brushed and pulled back with a small clip. She was holding a new stuffed bunny, hugging it tight while she colored in a fresh coloring book with crayons that still smelled like the package. Rachel saw Daniel approaching and immediately stood up. The credit card was already in her shaking hand. I was going to return it, she said quickly, panic in her voice. I promise. I just needed a few things first. Basic things. Keep it, Daniel said gently. You still have hours left. Rachel's shoulders dropped with relief. I don't understand you. That makes 2 of us, Daniel admitted. He looked at Lily, who was watching him with big brown eyes. That's a nice bunny. What's her name? Lily hugged the toy tighter, shy but smiling. Coco, she whispered. Beautiful name, Daniel said softly. His throat felt tight. He looked back at Rachel. What else did you buy? Rachel hesitated, then slowly pulled 2 crumpled receipts from her pocket. She handed them over like evidence in a trial. Daniel read the first receipt slowly. Children's raincoat. Children's boots, waterproof. Socks, pack of 6. Children's underwear, pack of 5. Stuffed bunny. Coloring books. Crayons. Children's vitamins. Band-Aids. Children's pain medicine. Every single item was for Lily. Not one thing for Rachel herself. The second receipt was from a grocery store. Bread. Peanut butter. Granola bars. Apples. Juice boxes. Crackers. String cheese. A gallon of milk. And then at the bottom, something that made Daniel's breath catch in his throat. Women's shelter donation. $150. He looked up sharply. You donated money? Rachel's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. The shelter on 3rd Avenue. They've helped us when they had space. They're always running out of supplies, always turning people away. I thought if I had extra, even just for one day, maybe I could help them help someone else. Someone else, Daniel repeated. His voice barely worked. You're homeless. You've been sleeping on floors for 6 months. And you gave money to help other people. There are women there with babies, Rachel said quietly. With teenagers. With disabilities. Some of them have it worse than we do. I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. If I could give back, even a little, even for one day, I had to. Daniel stared at the receipts. His father's voice was completely silent now, destroyed by the truth printed on paper. This woman, who had every reason to be selfish, who had every right to think only of herself and her daughter, had spent a billionaire's money on necessities, medicine, and charity. Not alcohol. Not designer clothes. Not jewelry or electronics. Just survival. Just kindness. Just love. You didn't buy anything for yourself, Daniel said. His voice cracked. Not a single thing. Rachel shook her head. Lily comes first. She always comes first. I can survive. I've survived this long. But she deserves better. She deserves to be warm, to be safe, to be a kid. Daniel looked at Lily, coloring a picture of a flower with complete focus. Coco the bunny tucked under her arm. A child who'd spent 7 years learning that the world was cold and cruel, but who still smiled. Still colored. Still hoped. For the first time in his life, Daniel Cross felt genuinely small. Not in wealth. Not in power. But in character. In basic human goodness. This homeless single mother had more grace in her rough fingertips than he'd learned in 40 years of privilege. Come with me, he said suddenly. The words fell out of his mouth before his brain could stop them. Rachel blinked. What? Both of you. Please come with me. Fear flashed in her eyes. Where? Somewhere warm, Daniel said, his voice breaking. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can finally stop running. Tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks. She looked at her daughter, then at this strange man kneeling in front of them. And for the first time in 6 months, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the world still had good people in it. Daniel took them to the Grand Hotel first. Not his apartment, that felt too personal, too overwhelming. Instead, he booked a suite with 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and windows that let in real sunlight instead of harsh subway lights. Rachel stood frozen at the doorway. She couldn't step inside. It's okay, Daniel said gently. This is yours for as long as you need it. No strings attached. No expectations. Just safety. Lily, unburdened by adult fear and disbelief, ran inside immediately. Her new boots squeaked on the clean floor. She touched everything with wonder. The soft couch, the thick curtains, the bowl of fresh fruit on the counter. Mama, look, Lily called out, pointing at the bathroom. There's a bathtub. A really, really big one. Rachel finally stepped inside. She moved like someone walking through a dream that might disappear at any moment. She set down the plastic bag that held everything she owned. Literally everything, and turned to Daniel with tears streaming down her face. I don't understand, she whispered. Why are you doing this? What do you want from us? Daniel had been asked that question 1,000 times in business meetings. People always wanted to know his angle, his hidden agenda, his secret plan. But standing there, watching a mother see safety for the first time in months, he realized he didn't have an agenda. He just had a choice. You reminded me what money is actually for, he said quietly. I'd forgotten. Or maybe I never knew. Rachel walked over to where Lily was exploring every corner of the suite with pure joy. She knelt down and wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her like she'd been afraid to hold her too tight before, as if hope itself might shatter. You need to rest, Daniel said. Order room service. Take a real bath. Sleep in an actual bed. I'll come back tomorrow morning. We'll figure out the next steps then. Next steps? Rachel asked, confusion and fear mixing in her voice. Housing, employment, school for Lily, healthcare, childcare, stability. Daniel listed them like a business plan because that's what his brain did. It solved problems. None of this has to be temporary unless you want it to be. Rachel stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. You're serious? Completely. We're strangers. We're nobody. We're just two people who got unlucky. You were nobody, Daniel corrected gently. Now you're someone I care about. Now you matter. Now you have someone who won't let you fall again. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but exhaustion won. 6 months of fear and sleeping with one eye open came crashing down all at once. She sank onto the couch, her body folding like someone who'd been holding up the sky and could finally let it rest. Thank you, she whispered. 2 words that carried the weight of 6 months of suffering. Daniel nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Get some rest, Rachel. You're safe now. Both of you. As he left, he heard Lily's delighted laughter echoing behind him. And Daniel Cross realized he was smiling. Not the fake smile he used in boardrooms, but something genuine. Something real. Something his face had almost forgotten how to do. That night, Daniel made phone calls. Not to lawyers or investors, but to people who actually helped, social workers, housing advocates, job placement specialists, school counselors. He used his name not as a weapon, but as a key to open doors that had been slammed in Rachel's face for months. By morning, he had real options. Solid, practical, sustainable options. He returned to the hotel at 9 carrying coffee and pastries from a bakery he thought Lily would love. When Rachel opened the door, she looked transformed. Not in appearance, she still wore the same worn clothes, but in the way she stood. Straighter. Lighter. With something in her eyes besides fear. Lily was drawing at the table, humming a song about butterflies. Coco sat proudly beside her. Morning, Daniel said, handing Rachel the coffee. She took it with both hands, breathing in the steam like a memory she'd thought was lost forever. Real coffee from a real coffee shop. I forgot what this was like. They sat together while Lily colored and Daniel laid out the plan. A 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood near good schools. Job training programs matched her background. She'd been an administrative assistant before everything fell apart. Healthcare coverage for both of them. Lily enrolled in 2nd grade at a school with excellent ratings and an after-school program. Rachel listened in stunned silence, tears running down her face. This isn't charity, Daniel said, because he'd been telling himself this all night. It's an investment. You're smart and capable and strong. You just need solid ground to stand on so you can start climbing again. I don't know how to repay you, Rachel said, her voice barely a whisper. You already did, Daniel replied. You showed me that good people still exist. That having nothing doesn't make someone greedy. That my father was wrong about everything that actually matters. Rachel shook her head, more tears falling. I just bought what Lily needed. Exactly, Daniel said. You had unlimited money for 24 hours, and you chose love over greed. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Most people would have drained that card buying things for themselves and never looked back. Rachel looked at her daughter, carefully coloring inside the lines, her little tongue sticking out in concentration. She's all I have. She's all that matters. Every choice I make is for her. I know, Daniel said softly. I saw it in those receipts. I saw it in that donation. You had nothing and you still gave. That's not just good. That's extraordinary. 3 weeks later, Rachel and Lily moved into their new apartment. 2 bedrooms on the 4th floor of a quiet building with a playground outside. It wasn't fancy, basic appliances, simple furniture, floors that creaked, but it was theirs. Real walls. A door that locked. Heat that worked. Windows that didn't let in rain. Daniel helped them move in. He carried boxes, built furniture, laughed when Lily insisted that Coco needed to sit on every piece of furniture to test it. She's very particular about quality, Rachel joked, watching her daughter arrange stuffed animals with the seriousness of an engineer. For the first time in years, Daniel felt useful. Not powerful. Not influential. Not wealthy. Just useful. Just present. Just human. That evening, after Lily fell asleep in her new bed, her very first real bed that wasn't a couch or a floor or borrowed charity, Rachel and Daniel stood in the small living room. I start the job training program Monday, Rachel said. Administrative work for healthcare companies. Stable hours. Real benefits. A path forward. You're going to be amazing at it, Daniel said. And he meant it. Rachel looked around the apartment, her eyes shining in the lamplight. I keep waiting to wake up back at the subway station, to realize this was all just a dream I had while freezing on concrete. It's real, Daniel promised. It's yours. Nobody can take it away. She turned to face him. Why did you choose us? Out of everyone in Seattle who's struggling, why me and Lily? Daniel had thought about that question every single day. He'd analyzed it like a business problem, broken it down into logical parts. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than logic allowed. Because you looked at your daughter the way my mother used to look at me, he said quietly. Before she died. Before my father turned cold and taught me that caring about people was weakness. You looked at Lily like nothing else in the world existed. Like you'd fight the universe itself to keep her safe. And I realized I'd spent 40 years believing people like you didn't exist anymore. Rachel wiped her eyes. You gave us a future. No, Daniel said. You already had a future. I just helped clear the path. You did the hard part. You survived. You kept Lily safe. You stayed kind when the world gave you every reason to be bitter. That's all you. Rachel smiled through tears. You're not what I expected. When I first saw you at the station in your expensive coat with your fancy briefcase, I thought you'd be cold. Harsh. Maybe cruel. I was all those things, Daniel admitted. You changed that. You and Lily reminded me that money is worthless if it doesn't create meaning. Months passed like pages turning in a book. Rachel completed her training program at the top of her class and landed a position at Seattle Grace Medical Center. Full benefits. Regular hours. A real career path opening up before her. Lily thrived in second grade. She made friends. She brought home artwork covered in gold stars. She no longer flinched when doors slammed or crowds got too close. The weight of homelessness slowly lifted from her small shoulders. Daniel visited often. Not as a benefactor checking on an investment,